Spring School Board, we are live.
Thank you all, TV. Hey, Vicky, could you roll call for us?
Sure. In attendance tonight is Eric Fredrickson, Patrick Brabant, Emma Field, Kate Harris, and Jeremy White.
Thank you very much. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for coming. We're going to get started. Those present tonight here and online, I'd like to ask us all to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. So to kick things off tonight, we have an amazing presentation. I'd like to invite our robotics team and their coaches to the podium to present some of the accomplishments that they've had. So come on up, guys. Oh, dude, what do you have to do? Oh, were we gonna turn the cameras? Oh, we already have it. Wonderful.
Thunderbolt. Come on. So those of you guys who weren't here last year for the innovation project, this is their research presentation for our first robotics program. This is in addition to coding a robot on a game board for points on a worldwide level. And this part of the project actually counts for probably about 50% of their score. And it's a research project. They give us a theme. This year's theme was called Submerged. And it was basically all about the ocean. And they had to discover their own problem that is occurring in the ocean. And they had to come up with a research-based innovative solution. So this is the presentation that they went into a room this past Saturday with judges, the first LEGO robotic judges, and they were scored on their research. And these guys, this group right here is moving on to the Long Island Championship finals, which is awesome. So we're very proud.
Good evening, Board of Education and Springs community. We are the Thunderbots. We proudly won the Engineering Excellence Award for both our robot design and innovation project this past weekend at the first tournament at William Floyd High School. Tonight, we are presenting our innovation project for you.
My name is Joe Martin.
My name is Daniel. What's time?
I'm Benny Villa.
My name is Saoirse Quinn.
I'm Francisco Vasquez.
My name is Wyatt Musser.
I am Sophia Rao.
And we are the Thunderbots.
When an animal has survived for 450 million years and survived 5 mass extinctions, you might think the species will never go extinct, until you realize they might not survive the 6th extinction. Us. Horseshoe crabs have been on the planet longer than dinosaurs and survived the extinction that killed them. They have also survived ice ages, but we might be the ones that cause all of this to end.
Horseshoe crabs are a majestic species that have lived for over 450 years, like Saoirse said. And it would be a shame to lose them. Just as their skin shades, their population is shedding too. And for many reasons. One of those many reasons is that they are being hunted by us dreadful, greedy humans just to want something else.
We are sacrificing a beautiful species of animal so we can do the same to other species, like whelk and eels, which are delicacies in Asia. Horseshoe crabs are hunted and sold as bait to catch the aforementioned animals. But thankfully, over the past couple of years, many states have banned their harvest for that reason. As you can see on this graph, the number of horseshoe crabs harvested for bait is blue and it's decreased.
Imagine you had a peanut butter allergy and ate another peanut butter cookie.
and needed an EpiPen, but it was contaminated. Horseshoe crab blood contains LAL, limulus amidosite lysate, which is used to make sure blood is not contaminated before used in the medical field. This prevents many great issues from appearing. Horseshoe crabs are collected when spawning during the full moon in summer and are taken to a lab by fishermen and given to the pharmaceutical companies. The crabs are then carefully strapped to a table, and they're pierced with a pump, which takes blood straight from the heart. When horseshoe crab blood is taken, 1/3 of their blood is taken. They need time to recover, but it is not known if they get that or not because they're not being monitored. As you can see here on the board, this is one of our own team members, Fiercia Quinn. She has worked with horseshoe crabs in the past, and she inspired our entire innovation project.
Horseshoe crabs are being under-monitored after release from pharmaceutical labs.
Our innovation project focuses on a tagging system, which is a solution to the problems we have identified. While paint is permanent, our tag isn't. And this is very important because our main goal is to count the mortality rates and also be able to know the migration patterns of the horseshoe crab. So this is how the tag will be like. It's right here in the horseshoe crab. So as you can see here, the tag will be a circular disc, and in the middle of the disc will go down into the crab shell, as you can see here, and at the end of the part that goes into the crab shell will be a little lip, so if it gets into like a fight with another animal, if it hits a rock, it won't easily come out. And here's a closer look of what the tag will look like. And as you can see, if the fisherman who catches the crab catches a male, as you can see here, the tag will be blue. And if it catches a female, as you can see here, the tag will be maroon.
I already had a question. Can you tell us what the information that tags collect? You might have already, but I was interested in seeing, I couldn't read. They look like there's 5 different things that tags collect.
On this, so on the ones we're wearing, this would be reflective tape, so it could be easily seen. This is the date the horseshoe crab was tagged, the facility where they were tagged, and each crab is given a specific number so they can be taken apart. And this is kind of where the hole goes when they are put in, and also see where the lip would be so that it wouldn't fall out.
That's very inventive. Thank you guys so much.
Great job, great job.
So where was this past competition that you just did?
In Ford High School.
In high school? Oh, what do we have here? Yeah.
So this is one of a Lego wall monument that we made during the competition. We gathered like most of the teams in the competition, and we made them sign a brick, and they all attached it. And it's like one of the core values in robotics: inclusion and fun. And we wanted to show that during the competition.
Oh, that's wonderful. Look at that.
Also, this is the award board.
Oh, really? Can I look a little closer? That's incredible. February 8th, 2025.
How did you guys come up with this idea
The idea
to
of
focus on horseshoe crabs?
as I said earlier, we got the inspiration from Fiercia because she had been working with horseshoe crabs and tagging them to track them in the past, but not to monitor their blood being taken.
Who were you tracking them with?
So I would go out in the summer to Lazy Point in Montauk with Jimmy Grimes. So we would go out with him.
With the trustees?
Yeah.
That's great. And were the trustees helpful in getting you guys information on the horseshoe crabs?
Actually, yeah, they did help us.
Yeah.
They gave us some info.
You guys have any more questions?
Is there anything different about horseshoe crab blood compared to our blood?
So if you look at this picture of the facility, horseshoe crab blood is actually blue. Contains a lot of copper, which makes it blue as opposed to red for us. So that's a big difference. It also, when it detects, as Sophia said, when they're testing it, they use it because it can detect harmful bacteria. So when they say put it in like a vaccine, it would clog if it's detected something bad, and it can detect harmful bacteria in as little as 1 part per trillion. So it's very good. Nice job.
Wonderful. Thank you guys so much.
Excellent job. Sam's here.
Almost there. I'm Max.
I'm David.
I'm Lyle.
I'm Johan.
I'm James.
I'm Derek.
I'm Kimmy.
And our 2 other teammates that are sick, unfortunately sick, so they weren't able to participate with us today. According to NOAA, the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration, the world has lost 30 to 50% of its coral reefs already. Without significant intervention, tropical reef ecosystems could face global extinction by the end of the century. We are more specifically researching the impact of coral reefs from ocean acidification. According to the National Scientist Foundation, the rising acidity threatens coral by not making it able to grow their skeletons. According to the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, CO2 removal technologies will be critical to get rid of 100 to 1,000 gigatons of carbon.
According to NOAA, coral reef is an animal called polyps, which is made up of colonies of hundreds to thousands of carnivorous corals. As data from Natural History Museum, most polyps have a hard exoskeleton, which is made up of calcium carbonate. Have you ever seen the movie Finding Nemo? Nemo and Marlin live on a coral reef. According to the Environmental Protection Agency, coral reefs provide habitat, nutrition, and protection from natural disasters. An estimated 25% of marine life, including over 4,000 species of fish, like a stonefish which I'm currently wearing, are dependent on coral reefs at some point in their life cycle.
Coral reef degradation is a process by which the reef faces a decreased quality and function. Coral reefs around the world are currently dying due to a variety of environmental disturbances, including increased levels of carbon dioxide in our atmosphere. The excessive carbon dioxide causes global temperatures to increase and the oceans to become more acidic and did you know oceans absorb about 50% of CO2 from the Earth's atmosphere? This is called ocean acidification. In addition, other causes of coral reef degradation include microplastics, pollution, overfishing, destructive fishing practices, tourism, sunscreens, earthquakes, tsunamis, and hurricanes. Coral reef degradation affects all of us in different ways. According to the Museum of Natural History, coral extracts can actually be used to develop treatment for asthma, arthritis, cancer, and heart disease. People also depend on coral reefs for food, jobs, and coastal protection. And the ridges in coral can reduce wave energy up to 95%, providing crucial protection from things such as waves and tsunamis. And in the end, have a global value of $5.7 trillion.
In school, our coach, Mr. Schwab, showed us how acid affects calcium carbonate and limestone, which is the same stuff coral reefs are made of. We saw that when we poured the acid on the limestone, it would bubble and a hole would develop. This is our teammates, Bart,
Well, she isn't here, so I'm just gonna read it for her. In our initial stages of research as a team, we spent a lot of time trying to understand what ocean acidification and coral reef degradation is. Once we started to understand, we were better able to formulate a plan and come up with a solution. In Kimmy's research, she discovered an atmospheric carbon scrubbing machine that removes CO2 from the air. This led us to research if this can be done in the oceans, because we thought this would be an amazing idea to create a prototype that removes carbon dioxide from the ocean like a vacuum. Simi then discovered an article from McMaster University that discussed about removing acid from the water without any other additional substances. This process is called bipolar membrane electrodialysis. This technology is still being researched till today. As a team, we all gathered up and researched what electrodialysis does. This technology uses electric currents to separate dissolved ions in seawater. This allowing extraction of molecules. In our research, we were able to find out that Captura and CO2 are 2 out of 4 companies that are currently pursuing this technology. According to Captura, the ocean holds 150 times more carbon than the air does.
Captura's technology also uses renewable energy to fuel its process without using any additives or byproducts. The company also aims to use existing infrastructures such as desalination plants for decommissioned oil rigs. The company has gained support of the U.S. Department of Energy and industry players like Norway's Equinor. The two companies are currently working together on a pilot project in Hawaii that will remove 1,000 tons of CO2 annually. CO2 does not have as large of a prototype as Captura. CO2's prototype is currently being executed in a lab, whereas Captura has a smaller model in the ocean off the coast of California.
After finding Captura's and CO2's website, we broke off into groups so we can reach out to their company to interview them on how we can elaborate on their technology. Our team came up with questions to ask on how we can build upon their build and their design. Then we drafted a letter to send to their companies in hopes of an opportunity to meet with them.
We wanted to know what they did with the excess carbon dioxide, as we thought it would be an innovative solution to partner up with the building supply company and produce carbon bricks as a carbon negative building material. In addition, we wanted to combine this with renewable energy resources to power it, such as windmills, solar panels, and ocean wave technology.
This is how we came up with a solution in sea bricks. Extracting carbon from the ocean one brick at a time. Sea bricks are a recyclable way to to recycle the carbon dioxide that comes out of the ocean. Typically, captured carbon is injected underground indefinitely. However, with the bipolar membrane electrodialysis, we can split carbon dioxide from the ocean into carbon and oxygen, followed by then taking the carbon and making a brick.
With these bricks, we can build buildings and houses, which is better for the environment because we're not burning any fossil fuels to make them. According to NOAA, carbon bricks are better for the environment because they compound and regulate on the Earth's temperature and makes up the food that sustains us and provides energy that fuels our global economy.
After a few weeks of waiting, we actually ended up hearing from CO2. Captura did not respond. We were able to meet with Amin Said, who was the founder and associate of CO2. We learned from Mr. Said that CO2 is a company based out of the Netherlands and also have a similar idea in mind of creating concrete bricks with excess carbon, which made us feel like we were on the right path with our project and ideas. Their prototype has not fully been executed, but they directed us to watch a documentary film called Legion 44. They have to have their prototype up and running the Capturas by the end of the year.
It was a really cool experience for us to be connected with Mr. Saeed from across the world. We are also hoping to share our design with our coach, Mrs. Hody's friend, who is an environmental protection specialist at U.S. Environmental Protection Agency. She agreed to meet with us. We just haven't had the time for all of us to come together yet. We also had a plan to meet with our science teacher's father, who was a port agent from NOAA. We thought he would be a good contact to share our idea with to see which ports would be the best to host our prototype.
The bricks will take out carbon out of the ocean, which will reduce the amount of carbon in the ocean with each brick created. This will help reduce ocean acidification, which then will positively impact the coral reefs because they will be able to sustain a tougher exoskeleton, since there will be less carbon in the water breaking down the reefs. Now we want to be clear that our research shows that sea bricks alone will not fully solve this global problem, unless scaled up to unrealistic levels. It will have to be a combination of reducing our reliance on fossil fuels, scrubbing carbon from the air, and taking steps to protect our coral reefs from the dangers of human influence in order to reduce the acidity of the entire ocean.
As a result of this research project, our team has not only been able to help us, but our classmates at school more aware and of the problem and steps even someone our age can take to help to prevent the ocean ecosystem from collapsing. Thank you for taking your time to listen to our project.
Wow. You put a tremendous amount of work in this. This is super interesting. So the sea bricks, once the carbon is in that form, it's no longer harmful to the marine environment. It sounds like.
No, because it uses bipolar membrane electric acid, like I said, to separate dissolved ions from the seawater. And like that's in our prototype, that's like that represents what happens in the process.
Oh wow, okay.
Here's the carbon dioxide, and inside, if you can see, that's where the bipolar membrane electric acid happens. It's where it zaps it and takes out the carbon dioxide out of it, and here's where we store it.
That's fascinating. So what did it feel like when you call this company that's been working on this for a long time and you realize you have a similar idea? Were they like, are you guys spying on us? Because that's pretty impressive, right? You guys are just working on this and like, you know what? We actually have something similar going on. What was that like?
They're mostly excited that we came up with something like that. Is the adults were there, they did it up, and we're just middle school researching.
Right. I think that's phenomenal. Do you guys have any questions?
No, it's so impressive.
Yeah, great job.
You guys
Really.
pretty much answered all your questions. Thank you so much.
I see a robot over there and no one has addressed it. Was this your design or like who designed it? Who was the main force behind designing this thing and why was it designed the way it is?
So basically, Johan opened up his computer and like we all had to make this. So there were 4 different parts to make, and like each one of us had to make a different one. Like it was Johan, me, Gael, and James who made each part, and then we all just like put them all combining, and then we made the robot.
How many of you guys are in 8th grade? So are these guys ready to take over from where you left off next year? Are they ready?
I think they're ready.
Good job.
Great job. Really great.
I love starting board meetings off with our students. Anytime we can do that, it's amazing. But now we have other stuff to go over. Students and parents, don't feel obligated to stay. If you have homework or other things to do. But thank you so much. We're now going to hold a public hearing concerning the proposed use of the repair reserve. The time is now 7:30 on the dot. If there are no objections from my fellow board members, I'd like to invite our business official, Sam Schneider, to give us a presentation.
Hi, how are you? Thanks very much.
Thanks, Sam.
Just so we get the presentation going here. So this is, I think, our third, if I'm not mistaken, use of the proposed use of the repair reserve. The repair reserve exists as a savings account to fund work that is repair in nature. All right, so the Repair Reserve Fund was created to fund repair work at Spring School. As of last month, it's $572,000 left in the Repair Reserve. And the format for accessing the Repair Reserve is, so let's define repairs first. The magic words here, the optimal words you need to use. If something has become broken, torn, worn, or inoperable, that's what you need to have in order to make it a repair. And the way that we access the Repair Reserve is a three-step process. The district administration has identified projects that it feels are needed, and I want to give credit to Nancy and the building administration and Greg Cobell, the facilities director from East Hampton, who you have a shared service with. They have spent an awful lot of time working with the facilities committee to identify projects that need to be done here that will help maintain this building in the condition that it needs to be in for the students and the taxpayers. The second step is that you're going to hold a public hearing, which is what you're doing right now, so you can educate yourselves on the use of the proposed Repair Reserve uses. And the third is later on this evening is an item on your agenda to vote to authorize the use of the Repair Reserve. So let's look at the projects. The first is classroom floor tile. We did this last year with 4 classrooms, I think, or the commons area. So we have 9 classrooms left that have asbestos tile. Either the tile is asbestos or the mastic, which is the glue that holds the tile to the floor, has asbestos in it. There's cracks. You can see examples of some of the photographs there. It's got to go. So we're going to do this same way we did it last time. There's going to be work done with air tenting. There's going to be laborers there who are going to show up. They're going to look that head to looks like a space outfit in order to make sure that the asbestos is contained. It will be removed, and a separate company will monitor the air as that's going on, and a third company is going to install the new tile when that's finished. The second project that we're looking at is the classroom doors. We have 19 classrooms where the doors, I guess, have been well used. They've seen better days. You can't really sand them down because they have multiple layers to them, and if you sand them down, it's just going to make it all uneven. So we're proposing to replace these 19 doors with new doors. You can see examples here of how they are scratched and cracking. Classroom lines is our third project. See there, it's very hard to act as a blind if it's completely broken. And so we're going to replace the blinds in 21 classrooms. The next project is actually going to be in this room. If you look up, you can see the library ceiling. So it looks like a drop ceiling, but it's not. It's adhered directly to the subsurface. So if you have, for example, there's stain in one of the tiles over there, you can't just take out the tile like you would in a regular drop ceiling because it's literally adhered directly to the ceiling. So we're going to put in a new system here. I know there is some concern about whether or not that would change the acoustics of the room. We're fairly confident it's going to work. If there's any issues afterwards, we'll address that on an as-needed basis. But you can see from the stains and the way that the ceiling is, this room needs a new ceiling. Wood paneling throughout the district. The best place to see this, if you'd like to see it yourself, is just in the front lobby here. It's kicked, it's scratched. Here we can try to sand it down. And that's what the contractor is going to do to the greatest extent possible, sand it down, restain it. Where that isn't going to work, we will replace it. You want the classrooms and the entranceway to look sharp so that it presents a unified look for the district. And so that's that project. In one of the science rooms, the demonstration desk has had a lot of great use over the years. It is time for a new demonstration desk. It is got cracks, it's got stains, it has done its duty for the taxpayers of Springs. It's time for a new piece of equipment there. And then obviously we did this in the, I think in the second Repair Reserve presentation. So now we're going to do this again. We have some additional trees that need to go. Having trees fall down on school property is obviously a very dangerous proposition. There are a rather extensive areas, so we need to clear that out to make sure we're maintaining safety and getting rid of the trees that are no longer operating as a tree. So that's the Repair Reserve. There's an item on the ballot later this evening to appropriate money from the Repair Reserve if you wish to do that. If you have any questions on that, happy to take them.
Thank you, Sam. Do we have any questions with regard to the Repair Reserve?
No, we did a walkthrough with you guys last weekend, last morning. It was good to see all that stuff.
Using the repair reserve is a good way to prevent problems from building up and building up and building up so that one day you have to do a major bond project to rectify the situation. And I think that you will see that from the work we've done so far, like the tile in the commons room, tiles in the classrooms, some of the other work projects we've done, we're able to accomplish things when they are size small rather than when they get size large where they cost a lot more money. And there's no impact on the taxes.
No, and it's a win-win situation. I mean, what you're dealing with is an aesthetic standpoint, a safety standpoint, and then on the back end, a cost standpoint. So, you know, when we're doing preventative maintenance, when we're doing safety evaluations, you know, this money is going to good use. And there's also things, you know, when it comes time for reserve that you don't know about. So some of these things are obviously planned, but there are many things that the nature and environment does that we have no control over. And in the absence of a repair reserve, we don't have the money to fix it. We have to pull it from somewhere else, which could affect our students and everything else.
Aside from the education of students in this community, one of your biggest responsibilities is maintaining this building because it is the largest investment of public money in this taxpaying district, and the repair reserve goes a long way to making that happen.
All right. Thank you very much. And so no questions from the board on that? All right, at this time, for the hearing standpoint, are there any questions from members of the public who'd like to speak on this? So please come up to the podium and announce yourself.
By the way, do you have extra copies of the agenda available? I saw it online, but I just looking for a copy. Good evening, my name is David. I'm David Gouda, and I am a resident of the Spring School District. I only learned of the pendency of these two public hearings yesterday when the agenda was posted on the school website. Proposed expenditures from the school's repair reserve fund are governed, as you know, by New York State General Municipal Law, Section 6D, which requires publication in the district's official newspapers of a public notice stating the proposal to appropriate specified amounts from the repair reserve for particular purposes. The public hearing notice must occur at least 5 days before the hearing date. However, I have searched the East Hampton Star, one of the 3 official newspapers of the district, and I've watched the videotape of the recent school board meetings, which unfortunately I could not personally attend, but I did watch them. I could find no resolution scheduling this particular public hearing and directing the publication of the required public notice in the official newspapers. Needless to say, I could not find any such published public notice. So I have to inquire whether you have proper legal jurisdiction to proceed with this public hearing at this time. Hopefully someone will be able to answer that when I'm finished. School financial records document that as of January 1st, 2025, the repair reserve account does have a balance of $572,000 and change. However, I must inquire as to precisely when the district voters approved the funding of the repair reserve accounts to that extent. As you will recall from the various interactions that occurred last September and October, there is clear authority that express voter approval is required to fund a repair reserve school account. There have been only there are at least, to my knowledge, I am aware of only 2 such voter approvals for depositing monies into this district's repair reserve account. When I inquired about the history of the district's repair reserve account last year, we ascertained that in 2007, the voters approved creating a repair reserve account and a $100,000, I think, initial deposit. Again, in 2011, additional repair reserve were legally properly authorized by the voters to the extent of $150,000. Though the repair reserve, however, grew after 2011 to more than $1 million. My surmise is that the district got into the practice and habit of every year, at the end of the year, taking unexpended funds and simply adding it to the repair reserve without the proper legal authorization. Were those deposits over the years duly authorized by the district voters? I do not know for certain. So I'm asking the district financial officials to investigate and report before you make any further expenditures from your reserve account. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Do we have answers that we can make now?
I have a copy of the ad in the
It ran. I don't know
Okay.
what to say. I mean,
Okay.
you know,
What paper went, please?
East Hampton on Thursday.
This past Thursday?
I have a copy inside.
Good. I looked, couldn't find it. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
All right. And I think to the other point, for the removal of doubt, we are putting this in the hands of the voters, and that's what tonight is about. So, you know, for the removal of anything, I can't speak to the past, but there is an item on the agenda later this evening to appropriate funds from the repair reserve. Are there any more questions from the public on this matter before I read the rest of this? If there are no other questions, I ask for a motion to close the public hearing on the repair reserve. Do I have a motion? Do I have a second? All right, motion carries. The time is now 7:42 p.m. So we're now going to hold another public hearing concerning the New York State Real Property Tax Law, Section 466. We're going to start that, and the time is still 7:42. So let me read this statement. Whereas for certain volunteer firefighters and certain volunteer ambulance workers, and whereas the law has been amended to including with the exempt class certain members of the East Hampton Volunteer Ocean Rescue and Auxiliary Squad members, we're looking to approve that for them. Are there any questions first from the board with regard to the approval of that for our Ocean Rescue and Auxiliary Squad folks? Okay.
do you want me to give a brief summary?
Yeah, can we, so, yeah, I mean, basically, this is something that we've done for the firefighters in the past, and now we have another group that, Sam, you're going to explain a little bit on this for us.
Right. So for members of the public or for the board, if you want to know, there are certain exemptions for property taxes that are permitted under the law. The most well-known is that members of the fire department who are active members can qualify if they own a home and it's their primary residence, 10% reduction in their property assessment. The state legislature passed a law this past spring, the governor signed, which would allow that similar program to be created for the East Hampton Volunteer Rescue and Auxiliary Squad members. So that's what this hearing is tonight, to essentially extend that same concept that folks in the fire department would have if they're members of the Volunteer Rescue Squad. I will tell you that I spoke with the assessor's office. There are throughout the town of East Hampton, 75 people who are in the squad. The assessor's office is not ready to give any information about how many actually live in this district and how many of them own a home, which would be their primary residence. So the number is going to be small. I can tell you, having just come from a hearing with your neighboring district in East Hampton, there are 6 people who would qualify for this exemption. So I imagine we're going to look at similarly sized numbers. The district doesn't get any less of its money. You continue to receive the full levy amount. It's just that the tax burden for that 10% reduction is spread out amongst everybody else. The impact for the rest of the taxpayers will be de minimis, very small, because there are very few of them and the reduction is very small. And as a personal matter, I could say if I ever found myself in the ocean, I would certainly hope that one of these people would be fishing me out. So,
right. Yeah, this is something that we had previously voted on for our volunteer ambulance workers and firefighters. And, you know, these are volunteers who perform a critical function in our community. And by extending it to the firefighters and ambulance workers, this group is so adjacent to them, providing an essential service for us that we'll vote on it later on, but you know, we certainly believe in it. So
the town has already exempted the squad members for the town portion of the taxes. It's up to the board if you want to exempt those folks who qualify, who live in this district, for the school portion of their taxes.
Right. Thank you very much. With that information, any other questions from the board or more questions? And for this one as well, the public certainly can ask questions. Are there any questions from members of the public on this particular one? All right. So as I mentioned, there's an item later on the agenda this evening to approve this specific resolution. If there are no other questions, I ask for a motion to close the public hearing. Do I have a motion? Do I have a second? Any opposed? No. Motion carries. The time is now 7:46 p.m. All right. So we're going to enter the public comment period of the meeting. And before public comment, I like to read this. I probably could have read this before even the hearing, but ladies and gentlemen, we're about to convene into the public comment period of our meeting. It's absolutely crucial for us to hear from our community members about their concerns and issues and appreciate all of your comments. While we may not be able to respond to your concerns and questions tonight, we do take them very seriously and want to have sufficient time to process and research issues if need be, so we can respond thoughtfully at a future meeting or have the proper staff member get back to you at the appropriate time. I also want to point out that under state and federal privacy laws, we are unable to entertain any comments or questions about school personnel or any individual identities. On these matters, we would ask you to go through the appropriate administrative channels. Finally, we intend that our school board meetings serve as an example to our students that members of our school board and members of our community can deal with controversial issues in a civil manner and demonstrate mutual respect. In that spirit, we ask that all speakers and members of the audience maintain civility and respect for any divergent views that may be expressed. We ask that speakers please address their comments to the board directly rather than the audience. Thank you very much. And having said that, we are going to move to the public comment, where this would be for comment on agenda items only this evening. So moving from the hearing to public comment number one, are there any public comments for the agenda items? Yes, please come on up.
Good evening again, David Wood. I have a couple of quick comments with regard to items on the agenda. First, I would really appreciate if the board president could explain the consent agenda procedure for how members of the board can move items off the consent agenda, because I'm familiar with consent agendas. Usually members of the board, if they have reason to think it's a matter of importance or significance or debate, that you can move it off the consent agenda, which means that you'll have to discuss it separately and approve it separately. I raise that because the one thing that clearly, in my opinion, should never have been put on a consent agenda is the 5-year construction contract with the high school for tuition. I know that that is also subject to voter approval, but it's quite a significant matter for the district. It's a matter that needs to be discussed. And in reviewing what was provided as part of your agenda, I noticed that there really was no explanation or even identification of the fact that there is a year-to-year increase of about 7% from last year's general education rate to next year's proposed general education rate. An increase from $25,087 per general education student up to a starting amount of $27,000. All that was mentioned in the discussion, or that you'll be discussing apparently, is the fact that over the next 5 years thereafter, it's only a 7% increase over those 5 years. But I see that there's a 7% increase from this year to next year that you should all be concerned about and discuss. Number two, another item on the agenda is the construction contract with the administrators. And this really applies, my concerns apply also to teachers in general. I noticed that, I'm sorry, that's a different paper, not that. The memorandum of agreement is also going to be reviewed tonight on the agenda with the Springs Administration Association. But I want to, as a taxpayer, I want to make mention of two great concerns on my part. 17 sick days is outrageous in my opinion. Most school districts have, most people in the private or public sector have 7 or 8, and many teachers have no more than 10. 17 sick days is quite overly generous in my opinion. Also, to have a contract that allows that payment can be made for up to 210 days at the time of retirement that have been saved, unused sick days, is really excessive and beyond the norm that you should discuss at length. Next, an item on the agenda that you have tonight, item 6.3, is to approve the anticipated property tax cap calculation. I want to make note of the fact that there appears to be some unexplained discrepancy between what you authorized by approved, what the voters authorized by way of the budget last year. They did approve a tax revenue amount of 33,900,488. However, the actual tax warrant, and I have a copy which I'll provide to your officials, indicates a discrepancy of a little less than $300,000 in the amount of tax revenue that actually will be collected and will be provided to you, and therefore that number may need to be revised. I don't know where that's. I do know that by making that reduction in the amount, the tax rate increase came down to what you had predicted instead of what it would have been as I had anticipated. And I think that's all that I have by way of matters that you will be discussing. I will be watching the budget presentation and make some comments afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you. What I could say on the consent agenda items is for certain personnel and contracts, it should be known that the board, for those special circumstances, do discuss items like that. But when it comes to sensitive information like that, that is not under the open meetings law, just know that we take that stuff very seriously and have that time reserved for that. Yeah, and that's all I have to say about that. Were there any other for public comment? Do we have any more for agenda items only? No? Okay. So from the staff, do you want to make any comments or anything on our consent agenda items? No? Okay. So this moment, I'd like to ask for motion to approve items 5.2 to 5.6 on our consent agenda. Do I have a motion? Do I have a second? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, so we're going to move to the business items section. We're going to discuss this one. So for business items, I ask for a motion to approve items 6.1 to 6.7 under the business items on our agenda. Do I have a motion? Do I have a second? All right, thank you. Sam, can you please review the business items with us?
Sure. I'll deliver 6.1 in just a moment. That's all right.
Yes.
6.2 is obviously the tax exemption we talked about a few minutes ago. 6.3 is related to the repair reserve that we talked about a few minutes ago. 6.4 is the anticipated property tax calculations. So let's be clear here. The voters do not approve the tax levy, which was referred to a moment ago. The voters approve the expenditure budget. Tax levy is an estimate based on the other revenues where you think you're going to end up. We are required by law to notify the state comptroller as to what we anticipate that the tax levy is going to be for next year's budget, and we have to do that by March 1st. Because the board needs to make the decision about whether or not it's going to seek to put a budget to the voters that would require piercing the tax cap, we think it's important that we ask the board to vote to approve this calculation. You can see that there's a condition there that allows some deviations when facts change. So for example, in calculating the capital tax levy is a measure of what we're going to spend on, among other things, debt service offset by state aid. So we've used the governor's budget as to what we think the state aid is going to be. The legislature can increase your state aid, and that affects what your levy calculation is going to be, which will amount for the discrepancy we heard before. There's no malfeasance going on, but it's a number that moves. We have said before, and we'll say it again in a few minutes, that superintendent is not going to recommend to you a budget that's going to require piercing the tax cap. So that's what this calculation is, the state tax cap. The remaining two items are fairly normal and routine. They're except the warrants, which is a list of checks that you've cut, and your appropriation revenue status report. Are there any questions on that? And then I can give you the budget presentation. Is that okay?
No questions on 6.2 to 6.7? And we could go to 6-1. Thank you, Sam.
All right, so this is our second budget presentation. We talked about last time. Let's remember, we're dividing this into essentially 3 sections. The budget has followed the chart of accounts that the state comptroller has. There are essentially, we have to call it 5 major sections of the budget. The first is central support. Second is instruction, all matters of instruction. Third is transportation. Fourth is benefits, and the 5th is debt service. So last time we did central support. Tonight we are doing instruction. And in our next presentation, we're going to handle the remaining 3: transportation, benefits, debt service. So with that in mind, let's just review what we talked about last time. Obviously, we've had some great accomplishments here in the district, both academically and fiscally. I don't have to read this to you to see where you stand. Teachers are doing really an excellent job in providing the kind of instruction the students in this community deserve. And the board has done an excellent job in managing the finances so that they deliver with superintendent's direction, with fiscal program as well. The budget formation process, the way it works is the superintendent working with her administrative team, I see them here, and the business department, along with Jonathan Page, district treasurer, are looking at where the state of the budget is, what works, what doesn't, what needs to be changed. District gathers information about what the contractual obligations are, best estimates of the spending plan. There's a lot of guesswork involved in this. You know, for example, and we can talk about this a little bit next time, health insurance. We are trying to predict what health insurance costs are going to be as much as 18 months from now. So there's a little bit of guesswork involved in where we're going here. District puts that all together. We monitor changes to the state aid formulas to determine what kind of revenue we can expect from the state. And it's up to the board to review these decisions to see what the superintendent's recommending are in the budget in order to put together a budget you're going to present to the voters in May. In doing that, we have some goals that Nancy has set out with her administrative team. Most importantly is that we are designing a budget that is going to stay within the property tax cap. We're very generous in this district over the last 2 years to support a program that needed it. We are not going to go to the well for a third time. Taxpayers deserve the respect of the district to stay within the property tax cap. So let's briefly talk about, so the first section we talked about tonight is academic administration. There are, additional superintendent, 3 academic administrators here. They oversee 75 teachers and providing all of the instruction to the students in this district. On top of that, you have really a great collection of non-instructional personnel who help to supplement what's going on by working with students one-on-one, keep them on task. Obviously, as part of that administration, you're all at classroom instruction. You're paying tuition to East Hampton School District for high school education, which is not a high school program here. There are 3 categories of spending that I just want to highlight to you. If I could take that, so that middle point that says classroom equipment, and the last one that says materials and supplies. So if we buy something and it costs more than $1,000, it is called equipment. So if this pen is $1,000, it is classified in the equipment section of your budget. This has not always been done in this district in the past, but with Jonathan here, we are making sure that we stay within this rule, that you have an equipment section of the budget. So again, in this hypothetical example, this pen is $1,000. It goes in the equipment code. Under the state law, you cannot transfer money from a non-equipment code to an equipment code. So we have to be very careful. What we recommend is the appropriation for equipment in the budget, because once the budget is set by the voters, that is all the equipment money we have. And we can move equipment money from one section to another, but you cannot create equipment money from non-equipment. So contrast that with the last point on the screen. If this pen is now $999, even though it is the same pen, it is now materials and supplies. And you can move money into the materials and supplies code of the state law. So again, we have to be careful about what's equipment, what's not. The middle section there is related to contractual expenses. So that's field trip fees. That's when you're paying outside consultants who do work needed for your instructional program. If you were to have an outside contractor come in to, let's say, provide an OT or PT service, that would be in contractual expenses. We touched briefly a moment ago on tuition to East Hampton. District has negotiated a new 5-year agreement with East Hampton. Let me say a word about that. And I recognize that I work for East Hampton School District. The numbers that were settled on by East Hampton and the districts that send students are right-sizing or relocating the tuition rate that make it mirror what the state non-resident tuition rate is. You have a very good thing here in that the year-to-year increase is not tied to what the state says is the non-resident tuition rate to educate a student, but rather it's tied to a 2% increase or less. The last 5 years with East Hampton, the tuition the rate has gone up by 2% per year. If the voters approve this contract, the rate will go up, I think, by 1.7 or 1.8% for several years, and then 2% in the last year. The problem is that the non-resident tuition rate has increased by more than 2% a year over the last 5 years. Parties agreed that there would have to be a resetting of the base number in order to make the expenses equal to what the taxpayers of East Hampton are spending to operate their high school. And then the increases would be very moderate for the remaining 4 years of the contract. So that's the rates that are laid out there. You can see them there. The voters are going to be asked to approve this contract later on in May. This is a summary of where the budget is for all those things that we just talked about. I want to focus on the section in orange just for a second. You can see, ooh, large decrease. So one of the things that Jonathan and I are trying to do here is we're trying to make the budget sections match what the comptroller expects the budget sections to be and what the state education department expects the budget sections to be. In the past, there has been an appropriation in this academic administration section of the budget for administration and oversight in your special education department. That is in the wrong spot. That needs to go to the special education expenses because it is related to special education. And by putting it there, it will help generate additional state aid for your special education costs. It more accurately reflects what it costs to run your special education program, and the state will aid you on that fact. So the reduction there, a couple of slides, we're going to see that it's going to reappear in the special education section of the budget. Okay. And you can see in yellow, we are now pulling out of the budget the specific equipment costs. Remember, we talked about my hypothetical pen purchase, and so that's the appropriation we need there. Okay. Special education, we're talking about here today. So obviously, we know special education, this is individually tailored plans to meet student need specific to the individual student. The Committee on Special Education makes that determination. Jessica there heads up the department. They're making sure that students who have special education needs have an individual education plan that is matched for those needs. We, in the financial side of things, do not get involved in those decisions. Jessica tells us what her needs are, and that's what we appropriate. We are not questioning what the needs are. We just need to know what they are so we know how to budget for them. Another special area of the budget that I want to call out that we have not previously isolated in the budget before, but again, I want to do that because it's going to help generate some additional aid for us, is our ELL department. You know, we have one of our prized ELL teachers here.
We have two of our prized.
Two of our prized ELL teachers here. Obviously, students come to this country, they don't speak English, they need to learn. They need to learn all aspects of speaking, listening, writing, reading. That's what your fabulous teachers do. We're going to highlight the costs of that. So again, we can help generate some aid for this district on that. Another important section of the instructional component of your budget is guidance, counseling, and health. You have social workers, psychologists here who help students who are suffering with mental health challenges and with anxiety, with any manner of things. You also have a nurse here who monitors the health of the students in this district and works with local families. So works with families and local physicians to promote healthy lifestyles. So put all that together, that's where the expenses are. So again, you can see in the EL education say, oh gosh, almost 2,000% increase. No, this has always been in the other section of the budget. We moved it over here so that we can call attention to it to the state. The state will see what we're spending when we report our expenses every year, and they will help generate additional aid for the district. Okay. Another great thing that goes on here in Springs is your co-curricular and athletic program. A lot of wonderful things going on for the kids after school. I know that you have the junior high play. I think it was last weekend. I've heard nothing but really positive reviews of how that went. A lot of clubs. You obviously saw the robotics club earlier today. And on top of that, you also have a really dynamic athletics program. Those are the sports we offer here for boys and girls in grades 7 and 8. And you can see on our next slide what the cost of that is. Costs are primarily driven by personnel costs, although there is also an expense to the athletic governing body of Section 11. So you can see what that is if we just keep going. All right, That was the expense side of the instructional component. Let's transition to the revenue side for a minute. Let's take a look at state aid. The governor has issued a budget. The state legislature is now going to debate this. They're supposed to come up with a budget by April 1st for a long time. April 1st was a figment of everybody's imagination. They missed it every year. Then, for like a brief period, they got it right and they were able to adopt the budget by April 1st. I think we hit like 3 years in a row where they met the deadline, and now we seem to be falling back into they missed the deadline. State aid is going to increase here by 57,000. Now, if you read the state aid runs, I'm sure everybody in this room did, you say, oh, hang on, it was more than that. There was a big increase. Problem is the state, confusingly, lists in the state aid runs what you're getting for your UPK program. You have to deduct that when you're looking at the state aid, because the UPK program is funded not in the general fund, but in the federal fund. So once you take out the UPK money in your comparison, that's the increase that the governor is giving you in the state aid. That's a year-over-year comparison. You can see, I will point out that we have talked about in the past the importance of wrapping up our construction project and closing it. You can see the building aid is a little anemic. Once we get this project closed, that number is going to go up, and deservedly so for taxpayers in this community. You can see some ups, some downs. Some of the state aid is driven by measures of poverty in the district, like foundation aid. Some of the calculations are based on a certain per pupil expenditure. That's like software, library, textbook. There's some variations of how that works. That's where we're looking for state aid. The governor, that's the governor's proposal. The legislature can increase it. In the past, they have. Some years a lot, some years not a lot. We'll see what happens, hopefully by April 1st. Let's review the property tax cap law. I lost track at this point. I think we're probably in year 14 or so of the property tax cap law. Essentially, it says that the levy, which again is not voted on by the voters, voters vote on the expenditure budget, not the levy. You set the levy. The levy can increase by no more than 2% or CPI, whichever is less, plus several exemptions. The only exemption in place next year is capital costs. Last year, the year we're in, some pension costs were exempt. That is not the case in the 25-26 budget cycle. This is the calculation of where you are for the property tax levy. We talked about this a moment ago. That's on your agenda. We have to file this with the state. I think we've reviewed all this material. That's where we are. We are going to stay within the property tax cap this year. So again, next steps, we're going to continue to monitor what comes out of Albany. We're going to continue to evaluate the educational needs of the district and see how that all fits in together. And we will continue this budget presentation with the schedule, which we will see now. Next time, as I talked about, we're going to talk about transportation, benefits, and debt service. That's the remaining expenditure portions of the budget that we haven't talked about yet. Then we're going to discuss revenue, and we're going to discuss other ballot items. There are, to my knowledge, at least 2 important questions that need to be put to the voters. Okay. Need to be put to the voters in May besides the budget. And so we'll talk about that. April 8th, it's going to be an overview with any final adjustments, and the board will be asked to adopt the budget. It's going to be a public hearing May 13th, and then it's in the hands of the voters in this room on May 20th from here tonight.
Okay. Thank you, Sam. Any questions from the board?
It's very clear.
No, I thought that was very clear. Thank you for explaining some of the changes and the reappropriation. It's wonderful to be more organized, and as such, open us up to greater funding. So not only is it easier to track, but anytime that we can get more aid is a win for everyone. So at this time, there are no questions from my fellow board members. I'd like to approve 6-1 through 6-7. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. At this point, we're going to move into the superintendent's report and recommendations. So I'll ask for a motion to approve items 7.1 to 7.3 under the superintendent's report and recommendations. Do I have a motion? Do I have a second? All right, Nancy, can you please review these?
Thank you, Eric. Yes, our first item is we are approving recommending to approve an intermunicipal agreement with East Hampton School District for school bus rental service. This is an agreement in case we need to rent a bus for the day. We recently had two buses offline that needed to be repaired, and we wanted to be sure that we had a backup plan in place in case we need another bus to take care of our students. This would be on a daily basis. And as I said, we don't need the service right now, but we do just want to have a backup service in case it's something that we need in the future or at any time. Our second item is the memorandum of agreement with our Springs Administrator Association. Their contract ran out in June of 2023. We've been negotiating since the beginning of the year. We're very happy that we came to an agreement that we think is very fair and consistent with what administrators make in other districts. We think that we're in a good place in comparison. We're very pleased with the administrative team here and all that we're doing at Spring School. And as I said, we think this is a very fair agreement and very pleased that we were all able to come to consensus. Next, I am very pleased to accept the donation of a kiln from our Springs PTA. Thank them very much. We're just so excited to have a kiln in our art room so that our kids can have pottery as part of their curriculum and program. I know I still have different pottery pieces that my children made when they were here at Springs many, many years ago. So I think that's something our kids are going to really enjoy. And then I just want to go over a few little things that have been occurring. As was mentioned before, we had our play over Thursday night. And I just do need to say kudos to all our staff and students. It was really a spectacular performance of Moana Jr. It was held at Guild Hall. It was a really wonderful venue and hope to be able to use it in the future. It's one of the best student performances I've seen in my many years as an educator. So very, very proud of our students and staff. It was a packed house. The thunderous applause was really a tribute to the talent of our students and staff. Our students the next day on Friday, most of our students had the opportunity to go to Guild Hall and see the performance as well, all coming back just really in awe of the performances. So kudos to all of them. It was really wonderful. Also on Saturday, February 8th, this past Saturday, we had two students, Hudson McLear and Charlie Fay. They traveled with one of our teachers, Christy Lamanda, to North Hempstead Beach. They competed in the Special Olympics Long Island Regional Snowshoe Competition. And Hudson won a gold in both the 50-meter and 100-meter dash. Charlie brought home the bronze in the 50-meter dash. So we just want to congratulate both of those students and also Miss Lamanda for participating and coaching these students in this event. Next up for the team is a bowling tournament that's going to be held on March 2nd at All-Star Bowl in Riverhead. So we wish them luck in that event as well. And just want to mention, we did have a new semester begin on February 3rd, and very pleased our fourth grade students are now able to participate in band. We have 50 students that have signed up for lessons. It's really a wonderful participation, and we look forward to hearing them perform at our spring concert. And then also on February 27th, we'll be having a pre-registration evening here for incoming pre-kindergarten and kindergarten students for the 25-26 school year. Staff is going to be available to help with the registration process and answer any questions. It's going to take place here in the library from 5:30 to 7. We'll have an interpreter here as well as tech support and laptops set up so that we can really provide support for parents in helping their kids register. This is going to help us with our budgeting and with our classroom usage, so we know early on how many students we may have in both our pre-K program and our kindergarten program. Also on February 27th, our fourth grade students are going to be visiting the Liberty Science Center in New Jersey. And the Liberty Science Center is an interactive science museum, and it's home of the largest planetarium in the U.S. And we want to really thank the PTA for all their support, not only with this field trip, but with so many field trips we have for our students. It's wonderful experiences, both educational for our students and things that they're going to remember for the rest of their lives. So we're very thankful to our PTA. Just so everyone's aware, students are going to have a half day of school this Friday, February 14th. Teachers are going to be participating in professional development activities. And then the week after is our winter break, so there'll be no school from February 17th through the 24th. During that week, just so people are aware, Project Most is going to be hosting a school vacation lab during that break, Monday through Friday for students in grades pre-K through 8. It's going to be held at the Community Learning Center on Meadow Way in East Hampton. Advanced registration is required. It's required. It's a great service for working parents to have available for their students during the winter break. And then I do wish to publicly thank our robotics team and their coaches for being here tonight. I congratulate the Thunderbots on winning the Engineering Excellence Award and advancing to the championship event in Hicksville on March 9th. I was so impressed with their presentation. Their memory was really amazing, how they presented, not reading and memorizing everything that they needed to say tonight. And I'm so proud of them. I think they did a great job, and I'm sure they're going to do very well in future competitions. And we put our enrollment up each meeting as we've been asked. And just so you're aware, the enrollment from our last presentation is pretty much the exact same. We lost one student in the pre-K through 8, and we gained one student at the high school. So we remained very steady as we're going forward. And just want to wish everyone a very wonderful winter break and a restful winter break, and looking forward to the second semester of the school year. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Nancy, that update is just one fantastic example of all the wonderful things that we have going on here at Spring School and that our budget supports. That's just one meeting's worth of what's going on. Our students are doing so many wonderful things. Of course, the robotics team tonight just being one demonstration, but so many other students are having fantastic accomplishments here too. And I really appreciate the shared services with East Hampton, the fact that we can continue to do that and expand into things in case we have an emergency with a rental bus. We very much appreciate our administration and are grateful to you, and we're appreciative that we have that contract in place. And our PTA is incredible. They are such amazing advocates for our students. They're constantly looking for new things, whether it's supporting field trips, and they've been working on the kiln. We got it on the agenda tonight, so thank you to them. And with that, I would like to know if there's any questions from the board on those items, 7.1 to 7.4. All right. So with that said, do I have a motion or all those in favor to approve items 7.1 to 7.3 on the agenda? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? No? All right, motion carries. At this point, we're going to move to public comment number 2. Public comment number 2 is more of an open public comment. Does not have to be with items on the agenda. At this time, is there anyone both on LTV? Sorry, LTV, I haven't asked you, but I know you would have told me if there was someone out there waiting. But if there is not anyone on LTV, is there anyone present here tonight that would like to make a public comment in this section?
Thanks, Eric. Just as a point of record, there has been no callers this evening.
Thank you. Yeah, go on. How are you?
Everyone. My name is Casey Deline. I'm the Arts Education Chair for PTA, and
I'm Leah Malcherno. I'm the Secretary of the PTA.
we just wanted to get up and sort of officially present the check for the kiln to the board and to the school, and give a little public background on where the money came from. As many people know, the Springs area is very well known as a historic art community. There are many world famous artists who have lived here and continue to live here and work. And inspired by this incredible history, in 2014, a group of parents started the Springs Mystery Art Sale as an art benefit to benefit the art program at Spring School. It had stopped for COVID and other reasons. We were able to bring back the sale last year, which was very exciting. And the PTA ran the sale and raised $17,000 to benefit the school. This was thanks to our incredible community, our families that are involved in Spring School, as well as staff and the community. So this event was really special because it reached more than just our sort of inner Springs community. It reached artists across the East End, and as well as art enthusiasts as well. So that was wonderful. Thank you to everyone who was involved. Leah and I are thrilled to be here to represent the PTA and all the volunteers that worked really hard on this event to present the check for $5,500 to buy a kiln for the Spring School Art Department. Mrs. Marino and Mrs. Bach, who are incredible art teachers, will now be able to expand their curriculum and teach students how to work three-dimensionally with clay. The kiln will allow them to fire the clay, to harden it, to be more permanent sculpture, and then also glaze and fire the clay. And for years to come, people will be able to enjoy these artworks, as Ms. Kari mentioned. And thank you again to the Spring School community. This community continues to show up for this school, and it's so heartwarming. And I just want to say thank you. And we're excited for the next generation of world famous artists.
Thank you.
Thank
I
you.
want to give a round of applause. Thank you very much. Yes. That's wonderful. Any other comments from the public?
I have, but I'll defer if there's anyone else. Nope, I guess not.
Come on up.
Good evening. First item, I'm David Buddha still. First item is to inquire as to what happened to the January 31st treasurer's report. It seems to have been omitted from this meeting's agenda. I'm sure there's a reason why it didn't get posted, and I wish you would provide it to the public as soon as it can be made available. And number two, it may have just been inadvertent, way of presenting it, Mr. President, but I would ask in the future that it would be more appropriate to review matters that are not on the consent agenda before you approve them. You actually approve them twice, which I guess is doubly good.
Well, we approve to go over them, and then we vote on favoring them. But just know that, as I mentioned before, certain items, especially on the consent agenda, are often discussed in executive session. So they go through a thorough discussion that may not always occur in a public meeting, so that you may not always hear that, but we do look at it and talk about it. So
I was referring to the superintendent's report and recommendations, but that was probably just a slip of the tongue that you asked for approval and then asked to have it reviewed. But that's really neither here nor there. I have to say I'm still very disappointed that, although Sam did provide an explanation as to why there's a 7.6% increase in next year's high school tuition rate, we have never been tied to the state formula. I think you need to query and question, and the public needs to query and question the 7.6% increase from this year, current year high school tuition rate. And I'm only looking at the general students because I don't have the numbers on the special ed students in front of me. That's a big jump, and it really needs to be justified. You can't just simply say, oh, the state has a formula. We've never been relied upon that. We've never used that. We've never been bound by it. So I don't know how that slipped by without one peep from any of you questioning that publicly. Perhaps in your executive sessions you've discussed it, but I think the public will be very much wanting to discuss that. Next. Sam's presentation this evening and last time, there was a matter of reorganizing for the good of the community, for the good of the district's finances, some of the locations of certain items in the budget. This budget presentation showed that you are reallocating some of the administrative expenses for special education, and it's being moved out of one section, which resulted in a decrease of $360,000, which on its face sounds good. But on the other hand, if you turn the page, a couple of pages, you see that the English language learning increase is $660,000. So that's a $300,000 difference. I don't think that's just a matter of moving something from column A to column B. There's a $300,000 difference that needs to be explained. Lastly, the public should have the benefit of the more detailed budget. I know that it might not be appropriate to put it on the screen every time, but I would like to be assured that if I make a request for the detailed line by line breakdown of where these numbers come from and what the specific items are included in each category that's been summarized in the manner it's been presented, that I will be able to get that from either the superintendent or from the financial officers. And I do think someone should inquire as to what appears on its face to be a $660,000 increase in the English language learning and education, although it's offset by that change in characterization or classification of some of the expenses. But that's a big difference that needs to be understood.
Well, thank you for your comments. I do think, Sam, you did a very good job in your presentation with explaining how those budget lines, I don't know if you want to comment, you certainly don't have to.
Well, taking the comments in reverse order, yeah, I mean, just as we did last year, we're going to have a line-by-line budget available for the voters. It's going to be on the website. It'll be, presented to the community for their examination and review before the vote. There's too many moving parts still in the budget right now in order to put it out there with any veracity. We'll come up with a line-by-line budget, and it'll change 10 times between now and when the budget's going to be adopted. So we will make that available as we always have. We're talking about taxpayer money here. There's no tricks involved. We're very happy for the public to examine the recommendations and the appropriations in the budget for them to make an evaluation. Yeah, in terms of the ELL expenditures, you're spending that this year, but you're not classifying it correctly, and thus you're not making yourself eligible for any aid that may exist. So we're putting it there. It's not new spending. And when you're comparing sections of the budget from one year to the next, you have to remember it's not static, right? Different things happen. You may have more staff. You may have less staff in a section. You may have greater student need. You may have less of a student need. You may have a greater contractual expense. So you can't compare this and make a simple comparison and say, well, you move this over here and that's not exactly replicating over here, because there's a number of moving parts within that. You're not, when you compare fractions, you have to compare like denominators. You got to do the same thing with the budget. And so all I will say is that, one of the contributory factors in the reduction that you see in the academic administration is the shift of special education oversight to the special education component of the budget. One of the contributory factors in the special education budget is, the inclusion of that there. But it's not an isolated thing. There's a number of expenditures that go into those lines. And we will have the line-by-line budget available for the public to examine.
Thank you. Makes good sense. Are there any more comments from the public? Going once, going twice, LTV?
Still no callers on the line.
All right. I'm going to make a motion to adjourn. Do I have a motion? Do I have a second? All right. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? No. Motion carries. Meeting adjourned.